In this video, we talked to Martin Agenis about how he's been able to drive $1.6 billion in pipeline revenue and over $150 million in source deals in the last 3 years using cold email. Martin Agenis is the founder of Send to Win and went from leading the global marketing team of Flutter at Google to starting 2 software companies and selling both of them to now scaling Send to Win and helping B2B companies scale their lead gen. Not only has he worked with multiple Fortune 500 companies, he alone has won 30 under 30 and his agency has won an abundance of awards. And in this video, we talk about how he arrived at cold email, why he chose with all of the different options out there, how he's using cold email to generate a massive pipeline for his companies, and the key things that you need to know if you want to have the success like Martin's been able to have with cold outreach. This was an awesome value-packed conversation with Martin, and I'm excited for you guys to see it. So let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another case study with Martin Agenis. Martin, how are we doing today?
Doing well. How are you, Austin?
Doing so good. Thank you for your time. Super excited to share with the community your story, your success with cold email, and everything that you've been able to build. It's pretty freaking impressive, I must say. So why don't you just give a quick intro to those watching, who you are, what you do, who you serve, all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. So I'm Martin Agenis. I'm the co-founder here at Send to Win. We are a B2B lead gen outbound agency that helps companies from all sizes, from Fortune 500s to pre-seed, get really, really great leads via email and LinkedIn. I personally have a long career in marketing and sales. I used to lead global marketing for Flutter at Google, and then I built and sold several software companies, and Send to Win was spun out of my own need as a founder to just generate better quality meetings and revenue.
Nice. So your use of cold email, it sounds like, and what you guys do now for other customers is basically help customers get more customers using cold email. That's your whole business model.
Yeah, we're like prospecting as a service. We always say we're like the SEAL Team 6 of SDRs. So we come in, we're already fully trained, have done thousands of different campaigns and have so much data on how to do great deliverability, great copywriting, and great targeting. And so we come in and do this on behalf of companies. And the analogy I like to give, it's kind of like if you want to clean your apartment, you can go buy a broom, buy a mop, buy a trash can, and do it all yourself. And those are the instruments like Instantly, Apollo, and different tools. Or you can hire a cleaning service that knows how to use those tools incredibly efficiently, executes on them for you, and you can spend your time doing everything else. So that's how we position ourselves.
Yeah, super awesome. I'm super excited to hear a little bit more from you on some advice, because you've had quite the success with cold email and using tools like Instantly. So like, why don't you maybe just share a little bit about like how you arrived at cold email and like why this was even a choice of generating leads? Because there's so many different ways to generate leads, obviously, and it's the email, it's the LinkedIn, like what you mentioned, there's ads, there's cold calling, there's direct mail, there's a bazillion different ways that you can generate leads, but you've built a whole business and a really successful business around cold email. Like, how did we arrive here?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously every channel has its own merit, but at the end of the day, this theory of email is dead, in my opinion, is wrong, because we, even for Send to Win alone, get 3 to 5 closed deals every few weeks just from cold email. And we're in one of the most saturated markets there is, right? So for me, it's more about how you use it. Like, you can have a soccer ball, but Lionel Messi and a high school student will use that soccer ball very differently, right? So same thing with cold email. At the end of the day, people check their emails. And if you're inboxing correctly, you have a really compelling subject line, you're not very spammy, and you have a reason to be reaching out to that person, then the odds of them responding are a lot higher. And that could be a really amazing opportunity. My co-founder, for example, got an Uber deal for Google via cold email. So,
wow.
If you can get at that level, anyone can do it. So I think it's more about looking under the hood and understanding, okay, what are these variables that make cold email so powerful? And that's what we try and do here at Send to Win. We, the actual sending and getting the emails read and delivered are kind of that tip of the iceberg that everyone sees. But under the water, that's the strategy part. And that's like, who are you sending to? How are you anchoring that message? Why is it relevant to them versus the spray and pray, which doesn't work? If it's just spray and pray, I agree with you. It's kind of dead there. And so luckily there's a lot of technologies and systems today that allow you to kind of be above the fold. But overall, we're seeing a lot of success with cold email, and so are our clients.
Yeah. And I thought before we press record here, we were talking about like your past companies and how you're generating leads for them. And like, tell us more about what you were trying before you finally landed on, okay, I'm going to go all in on cold email.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my past startups, I was in the position where I just wanted more quality leads. And we tried every channel possible. We tried, running ads. We tried cold calling, email, LinkedIn. And at the end of the day, email was a really powerful tool because we realized that it allows us to scale infinitely. Obviously, other platforms have limitations on how much you can reach out to, and that hurts not just because of the number of people you're reaching out to, but also because of the experimentation you can do and the iterations
Mm-hmm.
to land on what's going to work best. And
Mm-hmm.
before Sendawin, I had worked with a few other agencies that I felt weren't iterating and experimenting fast enough to get to that point where you want to be sending the right ones. And also I tried hiring internal SDRs, which can be very costly, time consuming, have to spend a lot of my own time training. And at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, that's also not ideal. And so we realized with Sendawin, it's kind of that middle ground where you have a team that kind of has all the training already and knows what they're doing, but also is doing it as a fractional service versus having to hire people full time. And so
Yeah.
before Sendawin, it was frustrating because I felt there wasn't enough iteration to the time I needed to spend myself on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was more iteration if I was really involved, but the whole point was I wanted to focus on other things. And so with Sendawin, what's nice is our clients can focus on a lot of other things, but have that speed, iteration, and really as fast as possible get to where is the puck headed with their emails that will give the ROI they want for that channel.
So what I hear you saying is it's the volume and scalability, and then also just like the speed of testing. Because if you do ads or like other different channels, like takes a little bit longer to test, and then you're also spending a lot more money on tests to cross your fingers to hope that it will actually work.
Absolutely. And same with the nature of your business, especially if you're B2B or you have really high level transactions, getting that just those responses via email and hopping on calls is much more effective. Obviously, if you're running a D2C play with just a couple $100, items, ads are
Sure.
going to be a lot more scalable. So it really does depend a bit on the business. But I do think, it's amazing how accessible people are, even C-suite at big companies. If you have the right positioning and deliverability, we've
Yeah.
seen some incredible results. Customers of ours have landed 30 million of deals just from
Wow.
emails, right? And so it can, if done right, it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, and simple too. Like it's a simpler funnel than having to do something crazy complex and overcomplicate the whole sales process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us about like your use of Instantly. How did you find it? How did you land on it? Why are we using Instantly as a suite with the size and scale that you're using it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at Sendawin, we use dozens of different technologies. We have several partners like Apollo.io honored us with the partner of the year. I know Instantly have given us some awards as well. For us, when we first started Sendawin, it was actually me just going in myself into DKIM and different records
Mhm.
and trying to update things. And there was a story where I accidentally single-handedly blocked all emails from a huge organization because I put in the
Oh my
wrong record.
gosh.
And that's when I realized I probably shouldn't be doing this myself. So we hired an amazing CTO to help with this. But similarly, with softwares, like at first we were doing building Gmails just to prove things out with companies instead of doing subdomains or new domains. So we kind of learned very quickly the hard way on how important it is to use trusted partners and technologies. And so that's what happened with a company like Instantly. When we were thinking about sequencing tools, a lot of other alternatives out there we saw are kind of focusing on so many different features versus the core of what we need, which is just to make sure an email gets sent correctly. Because deliverability, we have that handled internally and we have a lot of proprietary things we do for it. But if we have great deliverability and then the systems we use to, for example, send the emails out are not consistent, which is
Yeah.
table stakes, that can be a huge damage to our business. And so Instantly is one of those technologies that we have felt like is kind of cutting edge in terms of sequencing, in terms of their ability to send out a lot of emails and kind of other things. We obviously use all sorts of technologies for other parts of our stack, but in terms of the actual sending out emails, I do think Instantly does a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And obviously their customer support is great too, because obviously things do happen, and there have been times where the email world is very complex, and I do feel like that team has done a great job of staying on top of the trends.
Yeah, that's good to hear because it's especially at the scale, there's the little things that become extremely important. It's one thing to just like pop in a software, send a bunch of cold emails, but it's another thing like when things do hit the fan, is there a backbone? And then two, just the integrity of the use if there's no errors, especially at the scale that you guys are sending and whatnot. So
Absolutely.
yeah, good to hear. Okay, let's give the people what they want. So a lot of people watching this maybe think to themselves, I don't know about cold email. I don't know about outbound. I don't know about Instantly. Cold email is potentially dead. It's dying. I get all these cold emails. I never respond to them. This isn't like a viable way for me to generate leads, maybe for my business or maybe for my clients. Like, what kind of results have you seen to tell the people watching that's thinking exactly what I just shared, that, hey, this works if you do it correctly. And then we'll get more into like what your advice would be to people who would actually start to use cold email.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen incredible results. We have hundreds of active customers right now, from, again, billion-dollar companies to founder-led pre-seed companies, and they're all incredibly happy. If you look at our website, you know, you can see a lot of case studies. And the reason why is we're very, very hands-on and strategic about the outreach before it even happens. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you want to reach out to growing Series A startups, one thing that a lot of people do is they just go to an Apollo or an Instantly and they look up companies within a certain criteria and they start sending kind of emails asking for demos. And that's okay, but it's not as anchored. We like anchoring. And what I mean by that is finding commonalities in the outreach. So one thing I did as an example is we have a lot of companies from Y Combinator that work with us. So I went and I actually scraped the list of the last 3 years worth of Y Combinator companies that have raised a Series A that are growing. And in the message, I said, hey, we were working with X, Y, and Z companies at Y Combinator. I'm personally involved with YC in these capacities, and we feel like this could be a great solution to you. Would love to show you out. And then a soft call to action, right? And that, again, we've already landed 5 net new customers in the last month and a half just from that campaign. And I've had about 35 conversations from it because of the anchoring. So just want to give you an example of like, you know, and we could do the same thing with conferences and events. If people are attending a conference or event, we'd love to scrape all the people attending ahead of time and do a pre and post event campaign. A lot of times we do this for ourselves and we land deals before even attending because people are eager to just get on a call. And so I think the theme here is the quality, and that's what drives the results. And with those strategies, we've been able to drive, you know, over 1.6 billion in pipeline and 150 million in revenue across hundreds of companies. And again, each one has their own tactics that we employ. There's no generic, hey, if you use this framework and these 3 steps, you're going to be a millionaire, right? That's not how it works. I think it's always about thinking with the end in mind. So think about who is your end recipient? What pain point are they feeling right now? What do they need from your solution? And then use that to build your framework. And we at Sendowin call it pain, value, credibility. So what is the pain point that you're providing, or the opportunity for them? Hook right away. Then value. What is the value that you can do to solve that pain point? And then credibility. Who are you backed by, or who do you come from, or why are you the best person in the world to help them with that solution? And then call to action. So important to do a give get. So instead of just, hey, 15 minutes of their time, which is so overused and a huge ask, hey, can I share with you what we did for a very similar company and what the results were, so you can get a sense of how this will work for you? Yeah. If someone read that and it's a true pain point, for them to say, sure, share it. Why not? That at least gives you an opening. And now you can see what company they're from. You can be very personalized in your response. And then you can send your calendar link and say, hey, take a look at this, and then let's hop on and I can show you what we can do for you. Right. And so using frameworks like that is really, really important. And it does differentiate you over the hundreds of emails that they get that are all AI written and not being that kind of nuanced in their strategy.
Yeah. So 1.6 billion in pipeline driven from cold email. So the people watching this should be second guessing their thoughts on if cold email in fact actually works or not. So you heard it here from Martin. He's crushing it with it. So let's
one more thing to say there. Like we are in one of the most saturated spaces in the world, right? Lead gen services. And about half of our current customers came from our own cold email campaigns. And
you're talking about hundreds of customers.
Correct. Yeah. We've gotten over 100 net new customers in the history of Sendowin just from our Sendowin cold email campaigns. And these are pretty massive deals and customers, right? And so that alone should show you that if done right, cold email does work, just using 100%. Those frameworks I talked about.
100%. So the people then watching this who they're like, how in the heck, Martin, do I do this? Like, how would I even get results? Like, how do I get $1.6 billion in pipeline revenue for my business or the businesses that I'm working with? Like, what would you say to those people? Like, what are some like maybe key tips? Like you gave some frameworks just now, but like principle driven, because you guys are very heavy on the strategy at your guys' agency. So like what can someone actionably do, or what should somebody be thinking about when they are using cold email?
Well, step one, they can go to sendowin.com and sign up with us.
Nice.
But obviously, if they, for some reason, don't want to work with us, look, there are 3 key things to look out for in cold email that we really care about, right? The first is deliverability, and that's table stakes. Our team actually comes from the Google team that wrote the spam filter laws. So we have a really
Wow.
good sense of how that works. But unfortunately, it's a very changing landscape. As many of you watching know, Microsoft released a massive update 6 months ago. Google released one about 12 months ago. It's always changing. And so you have to be
Hmm.
super on top of those trends. And oftentimes, unfortunately, a lot of these warm up pools or services all are used by the same people. And oftentimes, open rates are very deceptive nowadays, and they add a
Hmm.
pixel and they're not always accurate. So if you're only depending on that, it's not, could lead to some, failure there. So what I suggest on deliverability is run your own placement test, have really good conviction on the emails that you're using, making sure they're cleaning all your lists using like a million verifier or zero bounce,
Hmm.
and constantly monitoring it, because it's painful for me when I see people spend so much time on the right targeting and the right copy and it works well, and suddenly they didn't realize for 6 months that it turns out that 60% of their emails weren't actually delivering.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's just such a waste of energy and time. So I would run placement tests, clean your list, make sure you're validating things that are actually working, even add your own emails to your campaigns from other
Yeah.
sources to make sure those are inboxing, because
Yeah.
again, sometimes metrics aren't 100% right there. So that's the first advice.
Is there a
Then,
deliverability metric that like a KPI that you always gun for your campaigns?
yeah, I mean, we aim for like 100% delivery on the active
Nice.
emails we're using. We
Yeah.
always have backup emails. So if for some reason something's happening, we'll rotate them, but we aim for near perfect. And that's the goal, because we don't want to waste one possible contact.
Yeah.
Obviously Microsoft based with extra spam filter servers are so like hospital systems oftentimes have
Sure.
some, filters that are so hard to get through. But overall, generally, if done correctly, emails should be inboxing. And if they're not, we definitely help with that. I know there's other solutions out there that do too, but I would also just, again, do those additional checks, like whether it's Glock apps, whether it's just your own placement tests, whether
Yeah.
it's looking at out of office reply trends, or whatever you
Mm.
need to do to make sure it's actually inboxing and it's not just the open rate number, because again, that can oftentimes be misleading.
Yeah, cool. I like that. I like that tip. No contact wasted. Cool.
Yes.
Deliverability. What was next? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the next tip is copywriting, right? As mentioned, ChatGPT is helpful, and I highly encourage prompting, but the human in the loop, I think, is incredibly important, even if just for that extra 10% before you
Mhm.
start sending. Rule number one is there are such obvious times, in my opinion, where AI has written something, even just
Mhm.
the M dash. You guys have seen that long dash everywhere. That
Mhm.
ChatGPT loves that M dash. The first thing I told my team is immediately remove it. Like, there's no reason to have that M dash everywhere. It just tells people that AI wrote this.
Mhm.
Sorry for the M dash lovers, but that's just my opinion. I just see it everywhere. But besides that, I mean, at the end of the day, one of the key parts that makes Sendowin so successful is you're looking at the person that actually reviews the copy. So me and
Mhm.
my co-founders, we all go in, even if we use prompting, and manually update the copy and think to ourselves, hey, would we open this email? Would we think that a human wrote this email? I love the think with the end in mind, right? So the goal is to do X. Now, how do we get there? Right. And so
Mhm.
when you're evaluating emails you're writing, ask yourself, is your gut like, oh, like this is spammy, or like, this is salesy? Or are you like, wow, this transition is amazing. This is compelling. There's no reason for me to say no to this. And if it's
Mhm.
the latter, then it's ready. If it's the former, then you just need to keep working the copy. Right.
Yeah.
So always ask yourself, like, is this something a human would actually write? Is this something that's, received? Because at the end of the day, it is a human receiving the email, not a machine.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I think copywriting is one of the most underrated skills for agencies and for businesses, in my opinion. Because if you once you get into it, like the works that you're doing, you realize how important every single word is and all that sort of stuff, and how much impact and like how much influence just like switching up some words can really have on your results.
Yeah, one example is subject lines, right? We used to have certain subject lines, the reply rate wasn't as high, and then we changed it to an action-oriented subject line, like, send me X or things
Yeah.
like that, and it doubled the reply rate.
Wow.
So that also speaks to the importance of A/B testing the copy, because you never really know what
Yeah.
copy is going to hit. What might seem good to you might actually not be the one that the data speaks to. So always be A/B testing, and when you find the winner, find new variants to at least send 10% to. So you're going to always be optimizing over time.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So we have the deliverability, we have the copywriting. Is there anything else?
Yeah, finally, the targeting, right? And as I spoke to before, how do you find these contacts and what criteria do you use to find them? And I think that's part of what we spend a lot of time on before we even send the first email with clients, is understanding, hey, you could do it by lookalikes. All right, who are your best current clients? Let's go find, reverse engineer the qualities and how they're tagged in the systems and find very similar lookalike companies to go after. Or what are some your alma matter, for example, Austin, like, wherever you went to school, why don't we go find
Mhm.
every alumni at that school that is now involved in a company that could be a great one for you, and do a campaign that says, from, alumni of X
Yeah.
university, right? So finding those places to scrape or find the contacts that will then lead to a very personalized campaign is
Yeah.
quite important. Obviously, general campaigns work well if written correctly, but I do always believe in, having those additional campaigns that have that edge over just
Mhm.
a completely cold
Yeah.
initiative.
Yeah. So you're saying don't just get a list of 100,000 people and saying the same message every single time. You would rather have 20 different lists curated by specific target.
Exactly.
Yeah. Huge believer, huge proponent of that as well.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Those are some good tips that people can freaking take right now and make action. So I guess for the people watching this, is there anything else that would be helpful for them as they venture into cold email, encourage them, additional tips, anything that would be good to leave them with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, cold email is just one funnel. What we do at Sendwin, for example, is a lot of LinkedIn outreach, but we don't do that by itself. What we do is we take everyone that hasn't responded to the emails and then
Nice.
throw them in a LinkedIn campaign as a 1-2 punch. And so
Yep.
my encouragement too is, if, for example, you send out a campaign, you spend a lot of time on it and you didn't get a lot of replies, there still might be gold there. There still might be a lot of value, because you can grab that data and use it either in other channels like LinkedIn, or reiterate to a new campaign to those people, and try again, right? Obviously, if they opt out, I'm a huge proponent of the Can Spam Act. Don't message them anymore.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, like, I wouldn't give up here. And I think there are some campaigns that are always going to be harder because of the ICP was harder to reach, or because the product might not be as compelling or needed in the market. So I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is identify why something's not working, and then make changes to that, instead of just disqualifying the whole category. Because it might just be a subject line change. It might just be the offer is too strong. It might just be that the batch that you scraped isn't actually the right people to go after. And so kind of be a doctor a little bit, dissect, but before going into surgery, like, really understand the diagnosis.
Yeah, good. Yeah, don't rush into it. Don't just be so eager and just be blasting people. So you said follow up or multi-channel, really, more times, more ways. Like don't assume the results on the first campaign. Do everything you can to get the life out of that customer, and then could take more channels. Because I agree, cold email is a channel, and I think if you do multiple, then you're omnipresent and you make more touches for sure. And then secondly, just test, analyze. I like
Absolutely.
the doctor analogy. Martin, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate your time. Appreciate you sharing your story and what you've been able to build. It's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, thanks so much, Austin. And again, if anyone listening wants help with all of this, feel free to contact us at sendowin.com, and we'd be happy to have a conversation.
And we will link that down below. Thanks again, Martin.
Perfect.